Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez here. I get asked all the time, why can't I install a continuous ink system on a P600 or a P800 or a Pro 1000? And the answer, you may not actually have heard this, but all three of those printers already run on a continuous ink system, sort of. I'll explain why. All right, so the question was asked, again, why can't I install a sys? Well, this is a generic sys unit right here. This is for the Epson 1400, the Stylus Photo 1400, an old one, or R 1400, I think it was called. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, I had it loaded with nothing but gloss optimizer so that I can just code prints using a special RIP program. And simply put, as you can see, series of external tanks siphoning ink through a set of tubings that form a ribbon. This is quite stiff, and these are attached or feed into what they call dampers, but really are just mini cartridges, the same shape and design that you would be using if you were just simply using refillable cartridges. The chips are auto reset. It works quite well. But remember, the 1400, just like the Pro 100, the Pro 10, uses a printhead. This is a printhead from the Canon Pro 9500. Cartridges right on top of these. And Canon cartridges, they don't really insert and mate, if you will, with the ink delivery system. They just kind of contact that port. I don't know if you can see the little oval ports in there. They make passive contact, so it's not a very secure lock or seal. So the lateral action of a sys unit, unless it is really designed really well and specifically for that particular printer, and a lot of them are not, they're kind of generically designed, one size fits all, if you will. The only thing that's specific might be the chips or the cartridge shapes. So not a good idea on a Canon printer. Now, for the Pro 100, there is a good sys unit that is made and sold by inkproducts.com. We're going to touch on that someday. I may actually go ahead and order one of those. And supposedly they work really well. They have solved the problem of the lateral forces that are applied during the movement of the printhead from right to left and back to right and so on. It doesn't seem to affect the seal of those cartridges or those dampers. But on a printer such as the Pro 1000 or the P800 or the P600, as it was originally asked about, you got to realize that, well, these printers are already running on a similar type design, a sys unit. P800 is really running on a sys unit, okay? These cartridges are what? Stationary. They do not move. These tanks or cartridges, if you will, are also stationary. They do not move. Now I'm going to take you in a little peek inside my Pro 1000 so you can see what I'm talking about. Again, refillables for the P800, the 3800, 3880, stationary cartridges. Cartridges for the R3000, the same as the P600, also stationary cartridges. All of those printers already rely on a very similar design for their ink delivery. Let me go ahead and open up this lid and take you inside for a bit of a look. All right, let's go ahead and take a peek. And as you can see, a beautifully designed sys system. That set of hoses right there, there are lots more supple than these hard plastic ones, okay? These do not flex very well. These are more like surgical tubing, very flexible. Notice the clips, notice the way this is actually attached to an arm that keeps that belt moving back and forth without any kind of tension applied to the printhead. The printhead is over there somewhere. Okay, the printhead contains internal dampers. So not only are these cartridges feeding ink to these ink lines, they are also filling up internal compartments inside the printhead, and those are the ones that ultimately feed the printhead. So this, in turn, if you open up the front lid, you have a set of 12 stationary cartridges which feed ink via these hoses onto the printhead. That is exactly what this does. Okay, exactly. This sits on the printhead. This becomes the dampers. This is the set of ink lines, and these are your external stationary cartridges. In this case, with the Pro 1000, they're not external, but they sort of are indeed stationary. They actually do not move. So that is why it would be ridiculous, even if you could design one, to run a double sys system or double continuous ink system. Would that work? Probably not. Probably not. As you may have heard a while back, when Precision Colors and I were trying to come up with an external sys system for this printer. Basically, what we were going to do is have external tanks constantly feeding the set of 12 cartridges. Okay? The theory being that if we could just continually feed those cartridges and just simply keep our eyes on the actual physical levels on the 6 tanks on the left and 6 tanks on the right, then we can just disable ink monitoring, have no need for chips to determine our actual ink levels. We just keep looking at the tanks. Yeah, it was a great idea in theory. It did not work. He tested it. He actually modified cartridges and attached little fittings on there, just like these, to feed the cartridge, keep it always full. That did not work. He did not explain fully what happened, but it was sort of a bit of a catastrophic problem. Okay, so again, don't even think of it. It's just a crazy idea. In theory, it seems like it would be a good idea, but in reality, no, don't do it. I remember very early on the R3000 when it first emerged and was being shipped. As soon as that occurred, oh, these companies were coming up with all sorts of systems for it to allow it to use third-party products. That's the R3000. It was the first small tabletop, if you will, model, 13-inch wide, as opposed to the 3800, 3880, which was a 17-inch wide, rather larger unit. This smaller R3000, they came up with a sys unit. In other words, you had to fool the lid by disabling the sensor that told you the lid was open. When I open this lid, it says lid open, please close. And so you cannot print with the lid open. So you had to disable that or fool it, hack it if you will. And then you needed special cartridges which were not designed for the R3000 to begin with, the shape that is. It was almost like half a cartridge. It was like if you took this and sliced it in half. Basically, something more along these lines. Ridiculous. And you had to put a bit of a shim inside to keep the cartridge from flopping around. Terrible. Anyway, yeah, they thought it was a great idea, and I guess for some it did work. Shortly after that, they actually came up with actual refillable cartridges. And back in the day, they required a battery-operated chip for resetting your ink levels. Really, really a bad thing. I remember those days. I don't want to go back to that. So anyway, the short story is that no, sys units cannot be installed on a printer that already utilizes the same type of technology. That would apply to the Pro 1 as well. Okay, you just can't do that. It's like piggybacking the same design. You're going from a crappy design, such as these generic ones, to an excellently engineered design. No, not a good idea. So forget about thinking about that, okay? Forget about it. There are other options for each one of those printers that I have mentioned. So don't even think about it. All right, that is it for now. I have something that I'm going to be discussing. Let me put some of the stuff out of the way here so I can show you what it is. I have found from Red River, and you guys can download this PDF as well. I will put it on my Facebook group, the files tab, for you guys to download. But I'm going to take you on a tour on the actual PDF on the computer, because I want you to visualize everything that I am about to disclose, or discuss, not disclose, because we already knew this information. But nobody ever did a side-by-side lateral. Look to the left, look to the right, and you see the two printers being compared to each other like never before. We're going to go ahead and do that. Epson SureColor P800 versus Canon Pro 1000 17 inkjet printer matchup. We're going to go through that. It's going to be lengthy. It's going to be probably about an hour. Okay, so make sure you watch it in sections, if you will, because it's going to be quite long. I have to do it that long. I'm not going to make individual videos. I'm not out to get views, if you will. I want you to have this information, and this is really good. This will open up your eyes and show you what printer you actually should get if you're on the borderline between these two models. Okay? All right, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. Happy printing, everyone. Bye-bye.